Uh-oh, we got more election deniers out there. Uh-oh, treason. Better arrest them. Wikipedia's entry on the 2016 POTUS election mentions Russia or Russian, not including sources and footnotes, 30 plus times, and Russian interference was mentioned 6 times. Sounds like election denial, eh? In its profile of Donald Trump, Wikipedia uses the term election denial and links to an essay that was hastily cobbled together with a bevy of cut and paste sources to prove that Donald Trump's claims about the 2016, or excuse me, I meant to write 2020. I'll have to correct that when I when I put it up on Rumble. They have a article that so-called proves that Trump's claims about the 2020 election were false. Wikipedia itself is false, though, as I've documented up, down, and neutral, backwards, forwards. In their hasty, sloppy article on election denial, they mention Kari Lake, but failed to mention the morbidly obese Stacey Abrams. In their profile of Abrams, they say, quote, she narrowly lost the election to Republican candidate Brian Kemp, but refused to concede, accusing Kemp of engaging in voter suppression as Georgia's Secretary of State. News outlets and political science experts have been unable to determine whether voter suppression affected its results. So, yeah, we're not sure. It could be true, though. But Donald Trump's full of crap. Yeah, but Kemp and Abrams, yeah, we're not sure. Maybe we'll figure it out in about 20 years, or maybe when Stacey loses some weight. Contrast that with their just-so statements on the 2016 presidential sweepstakes and Russia's alleged role in it. Very disingenuous and amusing indeed. In their election denier essay, they say, quote, an October 2022 Washington Post analysis found that 51% of Republican nominees for House, Senate, and key statewide offices in nearly every state that year denied or questioned the 2020 election outcome. As of August 2023, a large majority of Republican voters and Republican-leaning independents continue to believe Joe Biden was a fake president. I mean, Joe Biden was not legitimately elected in 2020. Many Democrats falsely believe Donald Trump was an illegitimate president, but that was not included, was it? Why not? In their article on Hillary Clinton, as they did with the obese Stacey Abrams, they do not use the term election denier or election denial. Neither Clinton nor Abrams were mentioned in their essay on election denial. Odd? Wonder why. Maxine Waters has a very long history of election denial going all the way back to 2000, but Wikipedia fails to mention that history, all other than saying aside from saying she objected to 3 presidential elections on the House floor, saying they were rigged, stolen elections, voter suppression, etc. Why didn't they attach the election denier tag to her? Was it because her claims were BS and or some of their idiots might get confused and think that Republicans did not invent election denial? Did Wikipedia do an analysis of Democrats in office or running for office and how many of them spewed forth misinformation and election denial after the 2016 presidential election? Russia changed no votes, but that lie, the big lie that has been spewed forth by Democrats many times, continues. Noted grifter John Lewis was not tagged with the election denier label, despite his false statements and phony statements about the 2016 presidential election, and Wikipedia fails to mention him in their election denier essay. Wikipedia also thinks we're a democracy, so they flunked high school civics, but they have a lot of company out there in that regard, on both sides of the aisle, unfortunately. The overweight Kamala Harris agreed with false statements made about so-called Russian interference in the 2016 election, yet she does not appear in Wiki's essay on election denialism, nor do they tag the overweight vice president with the election denier label in their profile of her. Why not? Mr. Magoo, a.k.a. Hakeem Jeffries, parroted lies about the 2016 presidential election more than once, yet he does not appear in Wikipedia's essay on election denialism, nor do they mention it on his profile page. They do say this, quote, Jeffries voted to impeach President Donald Trump during both his first and second impeachments in the House. He repeatedly calls Trump's presidency illegitimate due to the Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election, end quote. You see how they did there? Now, if Hakeem Jeffries was doing the same thing and he was a Republican to Joe Biden, they would call his claims phony or baseless or lies. I guess they did not call him an election denier because Wikipedia wants to keep that false talking point alive. So why not just call him an election denier? You know the answer to that. Mike Lindell is taken to task for questioning the 2020 election, but James McGovern, who spouted lies during the 2016 electoral vote tally, was not labeled an election denier, nor did he appear in Wiki's essay on election denialism. They did say this, quote, on January 6, 2017, McGovern objected to Alabama's electoral votes. And who was anybody disputing who won Alabama? McGovern objected to Alabama's electoral votes, which Donald Trump had won with 62.08% of the vote, because no senator joined his objection. The objection was dismissed, end quote. I ask again, why not tag him with the election denier label? Why do they just leave it at that? Why don't they say, by the way, McGovern was full of crap, end quote. They gave it 2 sentences and moved on. See a little bit of difference there? Sheila Jackson Lee is a prominent election denier, but she's not mentioned in Wiki's essay, quote, I put essay in quotation marks, on election denialism. Why not? The profile of her on her site does mention in passing that she objected to 3 presidential elections and even mentions 30 of her comrades throwing a hissy fit in 2005 over the count in Ohio. It's funny that they mentioned the counting of votes in 2000 was contentious, but do not say the same thing about voting in 2020 in certain states. I wonder why. More of the same. They say the following about Barbara Lee, but fail to call her an election denier. Quote, after the 2016 presidential election, Lee objected to Michigan and West Virginia's electoral votes because no senator joined her objections. They were dismissed. End quote. And they didn't add, no, Lee's claims were false and phony and fake and baseless and crap. Nope. Uncle Albert Gore Jr., the senator's son, and his running mate, Mr. Milky Toast, Joe Lieberman, were vocal on more than one occasion that the 2000 election was stolen from them. But they do not appear in Wiki's article on election denialism, because that would be a big one you would put in there, I would think. And they are not dubbed as election deniers in their profile pages on Wiki either. They don't call Gore an election denier, despite refusing to concede his loss until December 13 of 2000. After that, Gore has asserted several times over the years that the election was stolen from him. Is he fomenting domestic terrorism for refusing to admit that he lost? So these Democrats who spewed forth lies for years after 2016, are they guilty of fomenting race riots? Because they know their base doesn't have a lot to do, which is another reason they want to get rid of everybody's guns, so when their base goes out in riots, nobody can stop them. So is Gore guilty of that? Is Gore a treasonous pig? Just wondering. Barbara Boxer is not mentioned in Wiki's essay on election denialism, nor do they call her that on her profile page yet. Quote, on January 6, 2005, Boxer joined Big Fat Representative Stephanie Tubbs, with emphasis on Tubbs, Jones, in filing a U.S. congressional objection to the certification of Ohio's Electoral College votes in the 2004 presidential sweepstakes. And I'll stop there for a second. Bush won Ohio by well over 100,000 votes. It was a blowout. So if there can be enough fake votes and enough chicanery for a state well over 100,000 votes to be stolen, then could Donald Trump say there were problems in Georgia or I mean, I'm just wondering. 100,000, because Trump didn't lose Georgia by 100,000 votes, not even close, or Arizona. Just wondering. Continuing. Quote, she called the objection her opening shot to be able to focus the light of truth on these terrible problems in the electoral system. Elections are being stolen. I added the elections are being stolen. This entire transcript will be on Rumble, by the way. YouTube, screw you. I'm not going to post a transcript on YouTube because YouTube sucks. The Senate voted the objection down 74-1. The House voted the objection down 267-31. So that means Boxer's full of crap, and she's parroting lies, and she's a treasonous pig. It was only the second congressional objection to an entire state's electoral delegation in U.S. history. The first instance was in 1877, end quote. But they don't call her an election denier. And they didn't put her, the FBI didn't knock her door down. did they? Blake Masters, who ran for Senate in Arizona, is not called an election denier, but it is implied, quote, Masters has echoed Donald Trump's claims that the 2020 presidential election was stolen. In June 2021, Masters said that it's really hard to know the winner of the 2020 election and supported an audit of the vote in Maricopa County. In a November 2021 campaign ad, Masters stated he thought Trump won in 2020. So they're not quite as hard on Masters. This is said about Ted Cruz, quote, after the January 2021 Capitol attack, Cruz received widespread political and popular backlash. Did they say that about Boxer or Maxine Waters or Big Fat Stephanie Tubbs? Cruz received political and popular backlash for objecting to the certification of Joe Biden's victory in the 2020 presidential election and giving credence to the false claim that the election was fraudulent. Were Boxer's claims false? Was it a false claim by Barbara Boxer or Maxine Waters or Al Gore or Joe Lieberman or Hakeem Jeffries? Oh, maybe not. Maybe not. Cruz backed a failed appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court attempting to overturn or nullify the 2020 presidential election in Pennsylvania, filed by U.S. Representative Mike Kelly, which argued that the Pennsylvania Constitution requires in-person voting except in narrow and defined circumstances. The Supreme Court of Pennsylvania had already rejected this argument. The U.S. Supreme Court declined to take up the case or issued an injunction, and Pennsylvania's Electoral College votes were cast for Joe Biden. Cruz later led an effort by a group of Republican senators to refuse to count Pennsylvania's Electoral College votes, citing baseless allegations of fraud. So are Maxine Waters, Jim McGovern, Barbara Boxer, are the baseless? Is it baseless or not? Why just the 3 sentences and then they move on? But Ted Cruz is different. Yeah, ask again, were Boxer's claims baseless? McGovern, Sheila Jackson Lee, Maxine Waters, Al Gore, etc. Why not? You can see how Wikipedia, America's fact-free, heavily edited encyclopedia, use the term loosely, treats Democrat election deniers with kid gloves, even kids' gloves, even ones that have done it 3 times. Holy crap. But when it comes to Ted Cruz, Carrie Lake, or Donald Trump, it's different. Even Joe Biden has engaged in election denial, insinuating that Al Gore really won the 2000 election, but they don't mention it in the senile senator's profile. Why not? Lastly, Wikipedia's essay on the so-called insurrection fails to mention all the protesters that got arrested at Donald Trump's inauguration, as well as all the violent demonstrations, and I've got video evidence to back this up, all the links will be in there, as well as all the violent demonstrations that broke out shortly after Hillary Clinton was defeated. I guess that was an insurrection too. But it's not mentioned. Why not? Why did Wikipedia not mention all the false claims made by Democrats in November 2016 that emboldened their unemployed base to engage in domestic terrorism? For 4 years, we listened to Hillary Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, Jimmy Carter, Hakeem Jeffries, Fat Kamala Harris, John Lewis, Maxine Waters, Dianne Feinstein, Marcia Fudge, Jamie Raskin, Sheila Jackson Lee, Ted Lieu, and the overweight Jerry Nadler, etc., and a whole host of others. For 4 years, we listened to that crap about Russian interference, and it was all BS. So Wikipedia, Wikipedia is hard on election deniers or easy on it. It depends on who you are. So it appears there are a lot of election deniers over at Wikipedia. If you sift through enough pages, they are engaging in a lot of election denial, a lot of election denialism. Figured I should call them out on that. Have a nice day.